After I finally got pregnant, my husband didn't seem to care. He even expected me to act like a nanny for Chelsea. After my husband repeatedly showed favoritism towards Chelsea, I decided to divorce him. After the divorce, I returned to the workplace. I transformed from a worn-out housewife into a decisive and efficient career woman. After I went on a date with my handsome boss, my ex-husband claimed he regretted everything. The range had seemed to have gone on strike. After cooking, I was completely covered in the smell of grease and smoke. As dinner was laid on the table, I had just taken off my apron when I heard Chelsea's picky voice, "Olivia, I can't eat onions. Please don't make dishes with onions anymore." Her tone was so casual, as if I were a hired nanny. Chad looked at me, a hint of displeasure in his voice. "Didn't I tell you to make pork stir-fry with bell peppers?" My hand, holding the serving utensils, froze mid-air. I forced a smile and said, "We ran out of bell peppers yesterday. I haven't bought more yet. Besides, I genuinely didn't know Chelsea was allergic to onions." Chelsea pouted, her face full of grievance. "Oh, Chad, does Olivia have a problem with me? I wouldn't have come if I'd known." Chad quickly comforted her softly, then turned to me and snapped, "Olivia, what are you waiting for? Take that onion stir-fry away." I paused for a moment, then carried the still steaming onion stir-fry back to the kitchen. When I returned, I saw Chelsea giving all the carrots she didn't like to Chad. "Chad, please eat these for me." Watching them enjoy each other's company, I took a few bites and then put down my fork and knife. "I'm full." Chad and Chelsea were busy serving each other, and no one paid attention to me. After dinner, Chad told me to go wash the dishes. I had just finished vomiting from morning sickness and emerged from the bathroom, my face pale. "I'm not feeling well. Could you do the dishes?" Chelsea was sitting on the couch, watching TV, and casually said, "Olivia, it's so hard for Chad to earn money and support the family. Why aren't you willing to help him out a bit?" My tone was not good. "If you want to wash them, go right ahead." Chelsea's expression immediately soured. Chad quickly intervened, "It's fine, I'll wash them." Chelsea, next to him, quickly composed herself and smiled. "Chad, you're so good to Olivia. Olivia is truly lucky to have such a considerate husband like you." I ignored them, went back to my room, and took the abortion appointment slip from my bag. I read it carefully, then folded it neatly and put it back. This child had been a hard one, and I had originally been very much looking forward to it. But now, I wanted to divorce Chad. Chad and I were college classmates. We dated for 2 years and got married shortly after graduation. Back in college, Chad was incredibly attentive to me. He'd bring me hot breakfast in the mornings and walk with me around the track in the evenings. In winter, he would buy my favorite hot pretzels. Afraid they'd get cold, he'd tuck them inside his down jacket, burning his chest red. When he proposed, Chad knelt on one knee in front of many onlookers, his eyes red-rimmed and voice choked with emotion. "Olivia, I'll be good to you for the rest of my life." Filled with joy, I took the vibrant red roses and, amidst everyone's blessings, accepted his proposal. At that moment, I felt like the happiest woman in the world. However, as soon as we got married, everything changed. Especially after 3 years of trying to conceive, with several IVF attempts failing, Eleanor grew very disdainful of me. As a result, Chad and my relationship plummeted to rock bottom. One night, I woke up for a drink of water and faintly heard Eleanor and Chad talking in low voices. "Chad, you've been married for so long without children, how can this be? You don't know, your mother gets laughed at behind her back when she goes out for groceries. They say the Miller family line is going to end." Eleanor said she wanted Chad to divorce me and find another woman who could bear children. Chad didn't refute her, his silence was an implicit agreement. I didn't dare make a sound and didn't drink the water. I quietly returned to bed, pretending to sleep while silently weeping. On our 4th wedding anniversary, Chad's phone was off. I worried about him and didn't sleep all night. Later, I found out he had taken Chelsea on a late-night hike just to watch the sunrise from the mountaintop. When I confronted him, Chad was indifferent, saying impatiently, "Chelsea was feeling down, so I went to spend time with her. What's the big deal? Do you think everyone is as idle as you, doing nothing all day, just lying around at home enjoying life?" So, when Chad once again spent the night driving Chelsea to a remote scenic spot to clear her head, I complained to Eleanor, only to be met with her sarcasm, saying it was my own fault for not being able to have children to keep my husband's heart. That night, I lay in bed, silently crying all night. I finally accepted that Chad didn't love me. I gave up. After deciding to divorce, I went to the hospital and scheduled an abortion for the following week. On the way home, I passed a mall. On a whim, I wanted to buy a new outfit. I remembered the first day I met Chelsea, She was dressed dazzlingly, intimately holding Chad's arm, deliberately displaying their closeness in front of me. And I looked so dull in comparison. Since I started trying to conceive, I hadn't dressed up in a long time. I wore outdated clothes, my nails were bare, my hair was split, and I looked nothing like my old self. Walking into the bustling mall, I felt a bit disoriented. I politely declined the sales assistant's enthusiastic recommendations and chose a dress that I was very pleased with after trying it on. But when I was about to pay, I hesitated a bit after seeing the price. "Olivia, so you came out early this morning to go shopping?" Chelsea's voice suddenly rang out. I turned around and saw her walking towards me, arm in arm with Chad. I asked Chad, puzzled, "Aren't you supposed to be at work today?" Chelsea smiled and said, "I wanted to buy a new dress," and Chad was worried I wasn't familiar with the area, so he specifically took the day off to come shopping with me. I looked at Chad's awkward expression and couldn't help but ask, "Didn't you say taking a day off would cost you $500, so you didn't want to take time off? But you can take time off to accompany Chelsea to buy clothes? Then why did you yell at me when I had a high fever and asked you to take me to the hospital?" Back then, I was delirious with fever, but Chad's voice on the phone was impatient. "Olivia, can't you be a bit more financially sensible? Taking you to the hospital will cost me $500. Then he sent $20 via Venmo and told me to take a taxi to the hospital by myself. Chad angrily interrupted me. "Why do you keep bringing up old things? You need to move on. You're too petty." The sales assistant stood awkwardly nearby, holding the dress and watching the scene unfold. She politely asked, "Ma'am, this dress looks lovely on you. Shall I wrap it up for you?" I was about to nod, but Chelsea snatched the dress away. "What a beautiful dress. It's exactly my size." The sales assistant awkwardly explained that it was the only dress left in that size. Chelsea stepped forward. "Olivia, you don't really go out much, so you won't have many chances to wear it. Just let me have it." I didn't want to, and was about to refuse, but Chad pushed me. "All right, just let Chelsea have it. You can buy another one." Not doing housework early in the morning, sneaking out to go shopping. "Olivia, are you only thinking of yourself?" Chad's voice wasn't quiet, and several nearby customers secretly glanced our way. Being spoken to like that in public, my eyes welled up. "Chad, after all these years of marriage, is this how you see me?" It was as if I were a nanny he'd hired. He didn't mention at all what I had given up for him. After marriage, for the sake of our family, I quit the job I had worked so hard to find and dedicated myself to being a full-time homemaker. I thought Chad would see my efforts and be more considerate. But he always came home from work in a bad mood and did nothing. Why should I do anything? "You're home all day, not working. You expect me to do even these few chores?" But at that time, Eleanor had fallen down the stairs and broken a bone. After making breakfast for Chad in the morning, I had to rush to the hospital to care for Eleanor, running between the hospital and home, utterly exhausted. Facing accusations, my eyes reddened, and I felt nothing but overwhelming injustice. In the end, I let Chelsea have that dress. Chad casually picked up a purple dress. "This one looks pretty good too, Olivia. Buy this one." I coldly refused. "No, thank you. Purple doesn't suit me." On the day of the abortion, I went to the hospital alone. I didn't tell anyone. The procedure was quick. I was out in just over 20 minutes. The nurse advised me to rest well for the next few days and avoid cold water as much as possible. My face pale, I sat on a chair in the hospital corridor. Next to me, a pregnant woman and her husband were happily looking at an ultrasound report. Just then, my phone rang. It was Chad. I answered the call, and he said impatiently, "Why did it take you so long to answer?" "Never mind. It's Chelsea's birthday today, so make sure to buy plenty of groceries. Don't put onions in this time, and go easy on the garlic. Chelsea doesn't like it." I calmly asked what Chelsea's birthday had to do with us. Chad clicked his tongue and said I was so narrow-minded. "Chelsea just returned from abroad, and her parents aren't around. What's wrong with her celebrating her birthday at our place to liven things up?" I gave Chad one last chance. "I'm not feeling well today, and I don't want to cook." Chad immediately grew annoyed. "You're always making a fuss. You've got too much free time. I work hard every day, and I don't feel uncomfortable anywhere." I tightened my grip on the phone and reiterated, "I don't want to cook today." On the other end of the line, Chad yelled furiously, "Are you getting defiant now? You eat my food, you use my things all day long. What's wrong with me asking you to cook one meal? Olivia, if you're so capable, why don't you go out and get a job? Can you even do that?" Chad sneered, belittling me. I didn't say anything and just hung up the phone. After leaving the hospital, I went to a law firm. I had already scheduled an appointment with the lawyer yesterday, explained the general situation, and today was to discuss the details. Reaching this point, I could only feel grateful that I didn't have children, otherwise, custody issues would complicate things even further. I didn't want anything from Chad, but the house we lived in was my premarital property, and I was determined to get it back. After discussing everything with the lawyer, I took the printed divorce agreement and went home. On the bus, Chad called again, telling me to meet him at a restaurant near his company for dinner. He also complained that I wasn't practical. If you cooked at home, you could save hundreds of dollars. I didn't say anything. I hadn't wanted to waste time with them, but I knew the divorce would have to be confronted sooner or later. So, when the bus stopped, I got off and hailed a taxi by the roadside. I decided I would settle things completely today. As soon as I entered the private dining room, I saw Chelsea's arm draped over Chad's shoulder. They were huddled together, looking at his phone and whispering, a very intimate posture. Hearing my footsteps, Chad looked up, his tone dismissive. Have a seat. I've already ordered the food. You're not picky anyway, so I just ordered what we like. I walked over and handed the divorce agreement to Chad. My signature was already on it. Chad didn't react immediately, his expression puzzled. Why are you giving me a piece of paper? Only after he looked down and clearly saw the contents did Chad's expression change, and he asked me what I meant. Chelsea also leaned in. Olivia, why are you suddenly divorcing Chad? A capable and considerate person like Chad is impossible to find, even if you search high and low. Why aren't you cherishing him? I sneered. If you like him so much, why don't you just marry him? Chelsea was momentarily choked by my words and fell silent. Chad's face darkened, and he angrily said, Olivia, are you doing this on purpose? Do you think you can threaten me with a divorce agreement to get my attention? You've got some nerve. How could anyone be so full of themselves? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Chad, you think too highly of yourself. My fingertips tapped on the table. My name is already signed. If you don't agree, we'll see each other in court. Chelsea patted Chad's back, then turned to blame me. Olivia, please stop stirring things up. Chad has a lot of pressure at work. Can't you be a little more understanding? I looked at Chelsea and laughed, enraged. Haven't I been understanding enough? I even used my premarital house as our marital home, and I have to occasionally host his relatives who came to sponge off us. He complains about stress all day, yet after working for so many years, he can't even afford a down payment for a house? Chad's face turned green then pale as he started to argue with me. Olivia, what's your point? You eat my food, use my things, and now you look down on me? I nodded decisively. Yes, I regret it. Is that a problem? Looking into Chad's eyes, I said that I should have found a local man with a house and a car in the first place. There wouldn't have been so many troubles with his family, and I wouldn't have had to quit my job to take care of the household. Chelsea started to condemn me on Chad's behalf. Olivia, you should be content. It's not about how much a man has, but how much he's willing to spend on you. Isn't it enough that Chad has $100 and is willing to give you 80? But the truth was, Chad had $100 and was willing to spend 80 of it on Chelsea. When it came to me, he'd just brazenly expect me to pay him 20. So I retorted, if you're so envious, why don't we switch places? Suddenly, the private dining room door was pushed open by a waiter who asked if we wanted the dishes served now. Everything that needed to be said had been said. I didn't want to stay and argue with them any longer, so I handed the signed divorce agreement to Chad. Perhaps from standing too long, I felt a slight ache in my lower abdomen. I suddenly leaned against the table and gave Chad my ultimatum. If you have no issues, sign it. I'll give you 2 days to move out your and your mother's belongings from the house. Chad scoffed, then reached out and tore the divorce agreement into several pieces. He sneered in dissatisfaction. You say you want a divorce, and I have to sign it? Whatever you say goes? Why should I listen to you, Olivia? When I decided to divorce, I had prepared myself for all sorts of unexpected situations. Chad's lack of cooperation was also expected. After all, people like me, who brought property to the marriage, were willing to subsidize him, and even acted as a nanny, were simply too rare. My expression remained unchanged. I nodded casually. Fine, then I'll see you in court. Back home, I immediately ordered a video doorbell for same-day delivery. Then I had a locksmith come to change the locks. I looked around. The house was cluttered with all sorts of miscellaneous items, including the empty bottles and cardboard boxes for recycling that Chad's mother insisted on collecting. They clashed completely with the minimalist modern decor. While the locksmith was still there, I gave him a small tip and asked him to take them downstairs. I started clearing out things in the house that didn't belong to me. After bending over and tidying for a long time, I was completely out of strength, so I had to call a cleaning service to help me. Out of the last bit of sentiment I had for Chad, I didn't just throw the items outside. Instead, I packed them in cardboard boxes and storage bags and placed them in the ground floor lobby. After tidying up, the house was much cleaner, and I was exhausted. I went to bed intending to rest for a bit, but I fell asleep without realizing it. I was fast asleep when I was woken by violent banging on the door. Through the thick security door, Chad's furious voice continuously echoed. "Olivia, what the hell are you doing? Open the damn door." I opened my phone and saw the surveillance footage on it. Chad had moved all the items I'd placed in the ground floor lobby back upstairs. Chelsea was standing behind him, and next to them, a locksmith was fiddling with the door lock with his tools. Luckily, I had deadbolt the door before going to sleep. Through the video doorbell, I calmly confronted Chad. "You're illegally trespassing on private property. I can call the police." Chad raged. "What illegal trespassing? I can't even enter my own house?" I re-emphasized, "This is my premarital property and has nothing to do with you. If you stay here any longer, I'll call the police." The locksmith had found an excuse to slip away as soon as our confrontation began. Chad was still fuming. "Fine, call the police. I haven't even signed the divorce agreement yet, and you're already talking about premarital property?" I hadn't even said anything more when suddenly the police arrived. Chad's face instantly changed. "Olivia, you actually called the police?" I didn't know what was going on because I hadn't had a chance to call the police, but since they seemed to be there for Chad, I remained silent. The scene was immediately subdued, and the police began asking who had called them. I threw back the covers, got out of bed, and walked out. Suddenly, I saw the door opposite mine open, and a tall, handsome man emerged. He was wearing loungewear, so he must have been resting. He told the police, "They're too noisy," constantly banging on the door. Chad started to argue that it was his house. My wife and I had an argument, and she changed the locks. I couldn't get in, so I banged on the door. Hearing this, I opened the door and told the police, "We're in the process of getting a divorce, and he's attempting to illegally enter my private property." The police began to reprimand Chad. Unlike his earlier aggressive banging, Chad was now submissive, only nodding his head. After they had said enough, the police took Chad downstairs. I called out to him. Perhaps thinking I was going to try and stop him, Chad wore an "I knew it" expression, but his smile hadn't fully formed before I cut him off. My voice was cold. "Take your things, or I'll call the junk haulers." Chad's face turned ashen. After they all left, the hallway became quiet again. I secretly eyed my neighbor across the hall, guessing he must be a busy professional since I had barely seen him since buying this apartment. I tentatively spoke, thanking him. The man's tone was casual. "No problem, just trying to help." He then reminded me, "Your situation might come back. Be careful if you hear knocking at your door." I had initially thought there wouldn't be any particular interactions with my neighbor. To my surprise, after I received an offer and successfully started my new job, I opened my boss's office door and locked eyes with my neighbor, who looked up. I didn't know if the surprise on my face was obvious. I stiffly raised my hand and greeted him. What a coincidence. As I handed over the documents, I saw the name tag clipped to his chest. His name was Ethan. After a period of adjustment, I grudgingly figured out how to get along with Ethan. Although he seemed aloof, he was actually a warm-hearted person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have called the police for a complete stranger. He'd even give me a ride home when we worked late. It was raining that day. I hitched a ride home with Ethan, and we took the elevator up from the underground parking garage. As the elevator doors opened, I was about to say goodbye to Ethan when he suddenly pulled me close, shielding me. I was forced to take a step back. I looked up and saw Chad standing in front of my door, holding a red rose. I was about to ask what he was doing there, but Chad couldn't hold back. He threw the rose to the ground and roared, "Bitch. No wonder you wanted a divorce, you found someone else. Ugh. You cheaters." Ethan, standing in front of me, frowned. "Watch your language. What I say to Olivia is none of your business." Chad stepped forward and tried to push Ethan, but he didn't budge. Ethan had his jacket in his hand. He had a habit of working out, and the arm he used to block Chad tensed, revealing nice muscle definition through his white shirt. Seeing disgraceful behavior, I spoke up to stop him. "Chad, can you calm down? The truth will come out eventually. Don't assume everyone is as low as you. What are you doing here?" I looked mockingly at the rose crushed under Chad's shoe on the ground, finding it utterly ridiculous. I had just seen someone selling them at a stall by the community entrance when I came back. $10 a piece, buy 3 get 1 free. The first time he sent me flowers after we got married was when we were preparing for our divorce proceedings. Maybe in Chad's eyes, I was only worth $10. Chad's face was ashen as he spoke, his voice sarcastic. It must have been so hard for you to be married to someone you despise for all these years, my dear. The moment I stopped revolving around him, it meant I looked down on him. How ridiculous. So what did my past efforts count for? Even a dog would bark and greet its owner when they came home. De perso. And I had sincerely loved and given everything to, my own husband, would only turn against me and accuse me of despising him the moment I admitted defeat and left. If I truly looked down on Chad, I wouldn't have married him when he had nothing. Chad's hometown was a small town. Before we got married, he insisted on taking me home, saying he wanted the elders to witness it. I went from plane to train, then to a bus, and finally rode a motorcycle for over 10 minutes. The journey was so bumpy that in the end, I just squatted by the roadside and threw up. He couldn't even produce a decent ring when we got married. My wedding ring was bought by my mother. There was no dowry money at all, and after the wedding, we moved directly into the house my parents prepared for me. At that time I was completely infatuated. Everyone around me tried to dissuade me, but I still recklessly plunged into this unblessed marriage. My mother never let me do much housework growing up, but for Chad, I forced myself to become a housewife, constantly revolving around the kitchen. And despite all this, Chad still said I looked down on him. I didn't want to explain myself any further to someone as self-centered as Chad. I subtly wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes. Chad, if you're not willing to sign the divorce agreement, then just wait for our court date next Tuesday. My expression calmed. You know I'm from here, and my family has some connections. Think carefully if you want to drag this out with me. After left, indignant, I leaned against the cold wall as if deflated, and my tears became uncontrollable. Ethan looked at me. Have some water. You don't look so good. I'll get you some hot water. After saying that, Ethan opened his apartment door, and when he came out again, he brought me a cup of water. The lights in Ethan's apartment were bright, a warm tone unlike the white light of the hallway. I thanked him in a hoarse voice. I'm sorry you had to witness that scene. Ethan paused, then comforted me in a rare soft tone. Don't be sad. Everyone hits a few bumps in the road. I was amused by him. I raised my cup and tilted it in his direction as if clinking glasses. Then you'd better wish me a quick escape from this pit. I tilted my head back and finished the hot water in the cup, wiped away my tears, and returned the glass to Ethan. Thank you for comforting me. When something was weighing on my mind, time seemed to fly by. Soon enough, it was Tuesday, the day of the court hearing. The lawsuit went smoothly. Chad was no longer unyielding and finally agreed to divorce me. From the courthouse, Chad called out to me and scoffed. You must be happy now that you're divorced. You can openly be with your lover. I found Chad's behavior both hateful and pathetic. I didn't want to argue with him further, so I simply walked away. Chelsea, who had come to pick him up, called out to me, her face full of reproach. Olivia, after all your years as husband and wife, how can you be so heartless? Chad was truly devoted to you. How will his relatives see him now that you're divorced? My tone was casual. If you feel so sorry for him, then you marry him. I'll thank his relatives on your behalf. I couldn't help but think, Chelsea, after all, studied abroad, her ideas shouldn't be so old-fashioned. Her words, in the end, were just an intentional performance for Chad. And, of course, fell for it every time. I watched as Chad rushed to comfort the seemingly tearful Chelsea, then glared at me fiercely. Olivia, don't get too smug. Be careful, no one wants you, you're damaged goods. It turned out that when one is extremely angry, one truly can't help but laugh out loud. I casually pulled out a decorative plant from a nearby vase, flicked my wrist with force, and splashed water all over Chad's face. First time I've seen someone spewing such filth. Let me help you wash it off. I put the vase back and then stared at Chad. Walking down the courthouse steps, I saw Ethan's car parked by the roadside. The company had a lot of business lately, so I had taken half a day off for court, and in the afternoon, I still had to go run errands with Ethan. I opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. Ethan started the engine, one hand on the steering wheel. So, the result wasn't bad, I take it? I smiled. It's fine. Aside from wasting a few years, I haven't really lost anything. Ethan's voice was low. It's all life experience. It's nothing. I tucked my hair behind my ear. I had just dyed it a cool flaxen brown 2 days ago and had a treatment done. It felt very smooth to the touch. Then I said jokingly, live and learn. From now on, I'll focus seriously on my work, Mr. Ethan. You'll have to give me a lot of guidance. It was just a joke to lighten the mood, but to my surprise, Ethan replied seriously, even without me, with your capabilities, you'd have no problem negotiating a promotion next year. Hearing that, my nose stung. In my previous chaotic marriage, Chad and those around him constantly undermined me. After a while, I couldn't help but wonder if I was truly incapable of doing anything right. It had been a long time since anyone had affirmed me like that. When I suddenly heard such affirming words, the first emotion that welled up was a sense of injustice. Although I had been swamped and disoriented these past few days, my new life gave me endless energy. Even with continuous overtime, I felt vibrant. I was walking briskly down the company corridor in my high heels, holding documents, when a colleague suddenly called out to me. Olivia, it looks like someone's looking for you in the lobby on the first floor. Do you want to go handle it? My colleague's expression seemed hesitant, as if there was more to say. My right eyelid suddenly twitched, and I had a bad feeling. I politely thanked her. When I reached the lobby on the first floor, I saw two people I never wanted to see again in my life. They only show up when they want something. I saw Chad's mother, Eleanor, crying loudly at the front desk. Chelsea stood beside her, seemingly trying to console her, but actually stirring things up. Seeing me, Eleanor cried even more dramatically, as if afraid someone wouldn't hear her. What a family misfortune. My daughter-in-law is having an affair, demanding a divorce. She conspired with a lawyer and took away the house my son worked so hard to earn. People were coming and going in the lobby, and many were drawn by her cries, secretly glancing at me from all directions. But I straightened my back and stood tall. Chelsea, on the side, was stirring things up, and Olivia didn't do it on purpose. The judge would only rule that way if she had evidence. Eleanor retorted furiously, what evidence does she have? My son earns $800,000 a year. All that money just disappeared. If it wasn't for the mortgage, where did it go? I sneered, ma'am, this house is my premarital property. You need to speak with evidence. I don't know how much your son earns in a year. I only know he got addicted to gambling and wanted me to use my property deed to help him get a loan. Eleanor accused me of slandering him, saying her son had always been obedient and sensible since he was a child, and there was no way he would gamble. I opened my phone. Whether he's a gambler or not, it has nothing to do with me now. Ma'am, if you stay here any longer, I'm calling the police. As I spoke, I waved the dial screen in front of her. Eleanor's face showed fear. Chelsea suddenly leaned in and whispered something in her ear. Instantly, as if finding her backbone, Eleanor spoke up, her voice outwardly fierce but inwardly weak. Then give back the gold chain Chad bought. Chelsea chimed in, that's right, Olivia. Don't be so petty and try to keep that. When we got married, Chad had given me a gold chain. He had just started working then, with no savings, and couldn't afford a proper wedding jewelry set. But 2 days before the wedding, he suddenly brought home a gold chain. Olivia, I don't have much now, but when I earn more money in the future, I'll definitely get you a full set of gold jewelry. Talking about this, I almost burst out laughing. I pulled the tangled chain from my pocket, my voice sarcastic. Ma'am, you didn't know? This necklace is just gold-plated silver. Eleanor's face was filled with disbelief. She stepped forward, trying to grab my hand. How is that possible? Olivia, did you swap it? I dodged backward slightly and threw the necklace toward her. First, have Chad produce the purchase receipt, or I'll sue you for extortion. Then, I shook my phone, my voice warning, Eleanor, I've recorded our entire conversation. If you bother me again, I'll send this recording to Chad's company and report him. Even if I don't work, my family can support me. And if Chad gets fired, don't forget how Chad got that job in the first place. I sneered a few times at the end. Chad's job, back then, was secured through my family's connections. Otherwise, with his abilities, his resume wouldn't even have passed the initial screening. Because I had promised Chad, I had never mentioned this in front of his family for all these years, and had always believed her good son was a golden boy who made it big from humble beginnings, obedient, sensible, and good at school, landing such a great job right after graduation. I, too, had once been enchanted by this glittering phoenix. It wasn't until my eyes had been washed clean by tears countless times that I finally saw that the person before me was actually a selfish, common opportunist. The golden glow I had seen was a beautiful illusion I had projected onto him because I loved him. I had thought I would never have any contact with Chad again, but due to some company business cooperation, I ran into him outside a meeting room. I was putting in my contact lenses at the mirror outside the restroom. Hearing footsteps, thought it was Ethan, who had gone to get eye drops, returning. So I reached out my hand backward, speaking with natural familiarity, "Give it to me." Suddenly, I felt someone touch my hand. I was startled, because Ethan wasn't someone to act so abruptly. I looked up and saw that the person behind me was my ex-husband, the one I wished would get hit by a car and end up in the hospital. Chad had a smug smile on his face. "Olivia, what's wrong? Not happy to see it's me?" He took a step forward, intending to touch me, but I blocked him with my hand. My eyes had been sensitive lately, and putting in my contact lenses had made them tear up a bit, so my eyes were a little red now. Chad wasn't annoyed. His tone was playful. "Why are you hiding in the restroom crying? Is the work stress too much, or are you just not capable enough? Do you regret not being a full-time housewife anymore, lounging around at home enjoying life?" I couldn't help but curse. "You're insane." Chad tried to move closer, but I dodged him. "Don't touch me. If you come any closer, I'm calling the police." Suddenly, I saw Ethan walking towards us and immediately called for help. Seeing his behavior, Ethan frowned, stepped forward, and pulled him away. "Mr. Chen, what are you doing to my employee?" My contact lens might have shifted, my eye felt very irritated, and I couldn't see clearly. Blinking several times didn't help. I covered my eye with one hand and quickly tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Mr. Ethan, where are the eye drops? Please put a couple in for me quickly." I heard Ethan say, "Let me put them in for you." Unable to bother with such thoughts, I leaned back slightly, bracing my hands on the sink behind me, and tried to keep my eyes open. It was my first time asking someone else to put in eye drops, and I was a bit nervous. I couldn't stop myself from blinking, so the drops didn't go into my eyes, they just ran down my face instead. Ethan's tone was as professional as a doctor's. "Don't blink," he instructed. His fingers were cool as they rested on my eyelid. With a slight pressure, the icy eye drops landed in my eye. It felt cool. I quickly blinked, and the dry, foreign sensation finally disappeared. I thanked Ethan. Turning my head, I saw Chad's face was ashen. "Olivia, Chad's lips trembled for a long moment. "You're so desperate for a promotion, you'd sleep with your boss, wouldn't you? You're utterly despicable." I didn't say a word. I just walked over and slapped him. I swung hard, and there was a sharp, clear sound. My palm tingled. Chad's face was knocked to the side by my slap. He clutched his face, eyes wide, staring at me in disbelief. And finally, silence fell around us. I glanced at him and commented, "I like that expression. Please keep it up." The meeting atmosphere was cordial. After it concluded, we shook hands with everyone from the other company. Once the files were packed, Ethan and I prepared to return to the office to go over the details again. Just as we reached the elevator, I realized I'd forgotten my bag in the lounge. "Mr. Ethan, I'm sorry, I forgot my bag. You can go on down." Ethan hummed an acknowledgement, reaching out to take the files I was holding. "I'll wait for you in the parking lot." I quickly pushed open the lounge door and found myself face to face with an uninvited Chad. Chad was standing by the table, next to my handbag, which had been ransacked. My lipstick and compact powder, used for touch-ups, lay scattered on the table. I frowned. "Chad, were you going through my bag?" Chad, standing before me, scoffed, raising a piece of paper he held. He then sneered, questioning me. "Olivia, what is this?" I looked closely. It was the ultrasound report I had hidden in a hidden compartment of my handbag. The report was dated the day I had scheduled my abortion. That was several months ago. I had already returned the abortion appointment slip to the hospital, but driven by a deeply complex emotion, I hadn't thrown away this report. Instead, I folded it into a small white square and carefully hid it in my handbag's hidden compartment, carrying it with me to and from work every day. Because once, I had genuinely looked forward to this child's arrival. The report I had secretly hidden was now open in Chad's hands. His eyes were bloodshot as he pressed me. "So, you were pregnant before we even divorced, and you got an abortion?" My expression didn't change at all as I waited for him to continue. I had expected him to ask why I aborted the child, if I had hesitated, or something similar. But what Chad actually said was a sharp, humiliating jab. "So nervous, because you don't know whose child it is, right? Olivia, it seems being a housewife was too stifling for you, holding you back from prostituting yourself, wasn't it?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing from Chad. After all our years together, we'd been married for years, yet he was humiliating me in such a vile manner. Our relationship, from campus to wedding gown, ended so disgracefully. I was trembling with rage, my chest heaving violently. I took a few steps forward, intending to slap him again. This time, however, Chad caught my hand directly. His grip was strong, twisting my wrist painfully. With his other hand, Chad grabbed the report and whipped it across my face. The thin edge of the paper cut my cheek, leaving a stinging, burning sensation. Olivia, how low can you get? I was so good to you, and this is how you repay me? Chad hissed, almost biting the words into my ear. I raised my left hand and slapped his face with a smack. It was a shame this hand didn't have the same force as my right. It felt light and weak. I hadn't told Chad that the tiny embryo on that ultrasound report was our child, because didn't deserve to be the father of my child. Looking at the red marks on both sides of Chad's face, I said in a flat tone, if that's what you want to think, there's nothing I can do. At my words, Chad's expressio and tightened even more, turning fierce, and he looked ready to fight me. I kicked him with my high heel, struggling to pull away, but Chad was stronger than I was, and I couldn't free my hand. Just then, the lounge door creaked open. Ethan took a few swift steps forward and quickly subdued Chad. As resisted, Ethan kicked his knee, then used the momentum to force him to his knees on the floor. Are you all right? Ethan turned his head to ask me. I rubbed my reddened wrist. I'm fine. I asked him why he came up. Ethan replied, you weren't coming down, so I came to check on you. Chad's hands and feet were restrained, leaving him only able to spew threats. You, Ethan, stop pretending to be a gentleman. Where was your gentlemanly conduct when you were eyeing a married woman? Ethan kicked him again. Chad cried out in pain and started cursing even more foully. I called security. They should be here soon. Ethan told me to sit and rest for a bit on a chair, then looked down at Chad, who was on the floor, and said, this room has surveillance, do you know that? Chad's eyes widened. He immediately went silent, red-faced with anger, like a chicken with its neck wrung. Shortly after, the security guards entered. After hearing the explanation, they took Chad away. Ethan gathered the scattered items on the table, put them back into my handbag, zipped it up, and came over to hand me the bag. He suddenly asked, have you thought about how you'll handle Mr. Chad? I took the bag, and at his words, I looked up at Ethan. I haven't seen him at all during our long interactions with the partner company, so it's safe to assume he's not a core member. Ethan gently prompted, and you are our company's representative, a key figure. If you just report this small issue to them, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to handle it. So, at the next meeting, I reported my encounter in the lounge to Chad's company. That room seems to have surveillance. You might want to verify it, I said, AS. Smile on my face. I trust your company also has zero tolerance for such behavior. The representative from the other side also smiled and nodded. Of course. And thank you, Ms. Olivia, for bringing this to our attention. Please rest assured. We certainly won't tolerate employees who lack professional ethics and bring their personal issues into work. Soon after, following another meeting, both parties formally signed the contract and reached a partnership. After half a month of hard work, we finally secured the big deal, and I couldn't stop smiling. After all, this was one of my top achievements since I started working. As long as there were no issues going forward, I could use this to negotiate a promotion and a raise. Ethan, walking beside me, suddenly asked, you're really happy, aren't you? I nodded excitedly, laughing as I replied, of course I am. And thank you, Mr. Ethan, for the opportunity. As we spoke, the elevator reached the first floor. Ethan and I walked out of the elevator, chatting and laughing, when I suddenly looked up and saw Chad. He wasn't wearing his ID badge. He was carrying a large pile of things and walking silently toward the exit. I glanced at the time. It was only a little past 4, not yet quitting time. It was clear Chad had been fired. Realizing this, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Just then, Chad suddenly turned around, his eyes searching, and then they locked directly with mine. His expression was agitated. The paper bag in his arms was suddenly thrown to the ground with a noisy clatter. Chad then took a few steps towards me, intending to grab my hand, but the man beside me blocked him with one hand. Ethan shielded me, his tone amused. Mr. Chad, you're divorced now. Maybe don't get so close? Chad's expression contorted. He had just opened his mouth when Ethan cut him off. If you don't earn something fairly, you risk having it taken away. If I were you, I'd already be busy updating my resume. Just then, 2 security guards walked by. Chad could only swallow his words, reluctantly backing away and kneeling on the ground to pick up the scattered items he had just thrown, putting them back into the paper bag. Ethan and I continued forward, walking past him. Ethan suddenly asked, are you free tomorrow night? I booked a table at a restaurant. I didn't think much of it and nodded. Sure, that sounds good. It'd be nice for everyone on the team to get together and relax after working overtime for so long. To my surprise, Ethan shook his head. Not with them. Just you and me. The two of us. I froze, taking a moment to process what he said. Ethan smiled and opened the car door for me. The work team will certainly have a celebratory dinner for securing this partnership, but the time hasn't been set yet. But tomorrow night, I'd like to invite you to dinner, personally. Ms. Olivia, would you do me the honor? Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.